Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining on time. So it's 2 p.m. Singapore time now. We're going to start now. So I see that I'm audible on my end. So if you can't hear me or see the slides, please let me know as soon as possible so that we can try to resolve it. All right. If not, then we'll go ahead. Right, thank you once again. Thanks for joining. So today the topic is about listing optimizations and how can you optimize and improve a conversion. And also we're going to talk a little bit more about Amazon ads as well. So today we're very happy and honored to have Hui Qi again, our ads manager from the Amazon ads team, to also share with us in later part about Amazon ads full funnel solutions. All right, so my name is Jun Liang and I will start on with the first half of the presentation before we move on to Amazon ads. So do stay with us. And if you have any question, let us know in the Q&A box. We will address it at the end of the session. So all the live webinar are recorded and you can find the recording in our official Amazon channel on YouTube. So the links is also shared on the chat box and the follow-up email as well. So don't worry about that. So if you happen to see the videos a couple months down the road, right, do make sure that you always refer to the latest online resources on Seller University or even Seller Central Help for the most updated information, especially things like policy or fee changes, etc. Okay. Well, these are some important notices to take a quick read. All right, so this is what we will be covering today. Right, so we're going to start off with a recap on some of the past webinars that I've covered. All right, so this is regarding listing, right? So just for those who, maybe not aware, so these are some of the entry points for where the traffic comes from. So there are several places like the search terms, the browse nodes, or even the sponsored products display area, sponsored brands and images, or even running coupon and deals. These are all the different elements that involve traffic flow on Amazon.com. Right, so there are different capacity for them to direct traffic and then to be able to have your product more discoverable based on the input that you put in that I will also go through. Right, this is an overview of typically how can you increase your traffic to the how to increase the traffic to your listing, right? There is the organic traffic where consumer or shoppers, your customers come to the shopping result page based on what we call like impressions. Impressions will be things like after they search, the result page came out, those products that appear on the result page. All right, so to get more impression, you got to do things like have the relevant keywords, leave notes, and even ads could be also one of the factors. So how do you actually get more people to view your detail page? Meaning that your shopper actually click on to your product listing to go into the detail page to look at more information. All right, so there are things like the title and the main image that will actually entice your customers to go into your product detail page. So there are some other things that you can also do to create a cycle of having this ongoing organic traffic, like having a good ratings of your seller rating, having a badge if you were to participate in any events or you run any coupons, and having good reviews from other customers as well. And also your seller or your BSR, like best seller ranking, would also have an impact on whether or not your products will appear when your shoppers shop on Amazon. So these are general rules of the product title, basic requirements. I'm pretty sure most of you would have known, but this is a good recap to refresh your memory. So the characteristic of good title is to make sure you have the 1 to 3 right keywords, and then in the title include your selling point, such as the material or the functions or the volume of the product, and make it simple, clear, well formatted, so that it's easy for your customers to look at it. So these are recommendations that we would recommend our seller to use in this format. First of all, you start with a brand name, and then plus the most important keyword that you think, and then include the characteristic, the function or the attribute, and plus other specification that you think is relevant for your target audience, right? So the example here is given, like for example, your brand name is ABC, Bluetooth speaker, 6 watt, deep bass, portable, waterproof speaker for outdoor activities, right? Something along the line. So you get a gist, right? So when you are doing your listing, these are the basic thing that you should already be doing it. So here's just a summary of the optimization methods, right? The key highlights, like keywords, selling point, and then some aesthetic part using your punctuation correctly, having a proper spacing with the right length, and keep it error or rather grammatically and spelling error free. All right. So for those who are not sure, right, there are some words they are not allowed in a title. All right. So these are the most of the words that you see here are usually not allowed on the product title itself. So if you put any of these in, right, most of the time you either be when you list it that time, you either be flagged out, or when you try to publish the listing that time, you'll be suppressed, or meaning that certain things you need to update. Maybe your title is not compliant. Right, and they are the main image rules, right? The use of a good image, you probably know as well. Most of the main image should have a clear, high quality white background showing just the product that you are selling, right? Right, these are the basic requirements. You can read through it in the recording when you have time. So the key tip is, use your shadow and reflection wisely if your product does have this kind of, requirements to be in. All right. So be careful that having additional of these might look nicer, but they should not be too distracting to your main image. These are just some tips. What is considered a good graphic and what is considered bad images that you should not use. All right. So we do have past webinar that covers a lot more in depth, a lot more examples, which you can check out the previous recording. So today we're going to focus more on what are the additional factors that help your listing to promote even more conversion. Conversion meaning that your the sales, meaning that customers converted end up buying something from your products, right? So I'm going to share the first element which will affect your traffic, which is the browse node. So browse node is actually, I will make it simple to understand, are those filters that you see. When you search for some items, you can do on the left side when you do some filtering, like what type of product. For example, like if you're selling t-shirt, you'll be able to do filtering, like is it a crew neck, classic neck, or V-neck, etc. Right. So those options will be available when you create your listings. And then although some of the options are optional when you create a listing, it's best to put in as much of those information as possible, depend on your category that you're selling, so that with the right browse node, you will be able to have more traffic, make it easier for your customers to find your product based on those browse node, which is typically those listings features that you have. So remember to put in those details correctly. The next is the search terms. So in the listing page, when you create a listing, there is also a field where you can create, or rather add in the terms that you think your target audience would search for. All right, so search terms are basically the words that describe your product. Okay, it can be a word or a phrase. It is case insensitive, so you don't need to duplicate, like have a capital and a small letter word on the search terms. There's no impact on that. All right. So having an accurate, meaningful search term will definitely help increase the chance of your product being found when your customer is doing a search on Amazon. Right. So one more thing is the product title, which I covered earlier on. Right. Make sure your product title is very intuitive and easy to understand by using the recommendation that I shared earlier on. Right. This is, I would say, product title is usually like the first thing. If you shop on Amazon before, it's usually the first thing that as a shopper you will see when you are searching for your product. So this is very important. It's really like the name of your store, because they will usually see your brand name first, followed by your product item and some of the key features of your item. All right. The last element regarding how to promote the traffic is on your product image. So we all know by now a good high quality image definitely affect your product conversion rates and also the search ranking. So make sure your main image, the one that is appearing at the first image that your customer will see, the first image that you upload when you do your product listing, is a very good, clear, and of high quality image that showcase your product well. All right. And then having that is not enough. You should also complement with a couple of additional images to showcase a different aspect of your products, which I'll share in some examples in a few slides. All right, the next element is about conversion. So what are the elements that will affect conversion, meaning that it will affect people to actually buy it? All right, so previously we covered traffic, meaning that those elements will increase people to visit your product pages. Right, but these elements that I'm going to share is to increase the conversion, which is the likelihood of your product being purchased. Right, so bullet points definitely is very important. So you should have ideally about 5 bullet points that highlight the key unique selling point of your product. Right, and then the product description is to give a lot more clarity to complement the bullet points that you have. All right, so in product description is usually something more descriptive that shares more than the product bullet points itself. Right, so if you have a very well written product description, right, it will help your customers to kind of imagine what it would be like to own or use a product. So I would say good copywriting skills is also very useful in this case to write a very descriptive product descriptions that will get your shopper start thinking about when they were to use your product. Okay, last one that will also help to drive conversion, which is the A+ content. So this is only available to brand owners, meaning that seller who are registered under brand registry, you'll be able to unlock one of these brand building tools, which is to create A+ content. So it's a little bit more, not say a little bit more, but a more interactive kind of content that you can put, like banners, comparison chart, different tables that you can add in beside the typical listing that you see. You'll be able to add more features to your listing to make it more appealing to your customers. All right. So next I will be talking about how to attract more traffic, like I mentioned earlier on, by using alternate images. All right, so I saw a Q&A question, so this might be related to what the question is about. All right, so they are the alternate image that we always see in the listing, and then so some of these alternative image may not be the white background usually. All right, so this is what some of the examples that you see over here. All right, so a good characteristic of high quality alternate image should showcase something like this. Okay, this is just some good reference that we see. All right, so ideally your product will appear with some of like, common items, make it very realistic on how your product is being used and help your customer imagine how they are using the product. All right, how they are using your product, right, to support their buying decision better. Right, and also show the actual colors You can do some edit, but moderately is allowed. So the end goal is to make it look real. You probably know, some of listing that you see somewhere else, it can be a little bit, I would say, a little bit fake. You can see that certain things stand out too strongly. So end of the day, you are the best person to actually judge whether or not the listing looks realistic or not, right? You will put yourself as a customer, will you believe the image when you saw it, when you see that image? So these are just other good examples as well. Have a good close up if you are selling product that is, that requires that kind of things like jewelries or some materials that you need to showcase. Right, again, these are just some good example, although it's of a different language, but I would say in general, the general idea is there to have alternate image that really showcase a different aspect of your product that's being used by your target customers, right? All right, so let's look at some other, image that we think may not be really helpful. So in this example, you can see although it is alternate images, but it's just showing very similar product of I would say a very similar angle, just a turn of here and there, but in general, the scene are pretty much the same, right? It doesn't really show the selling point of the product you're trying to sell. So it's really not a very good use of the alternate image. Right, so again, these are all the unoptimized one. You can see these two highly, I would say, Photoshop already. It's very obvious. The moment you see, you know that a lot of the amendment or artwork changes has been done to the fact that it's a little bit too unreal. All right, and again, these are also some type that the images we don't think is too optimized. Of course, more can be done. All right, these are some tips which you probably get a sense already based on all the good example we show, right? To have a image that surround around your core selling point of the product, right? You can go even a little bit more further, but that will require, more, I would say more artwork design on your end, right? You can add in certain graphics and numbers to actually showcase like the dimensions or even the materials, etc., to make it more appealing to your customers. Right, before we end this part about images, right, do also take note on the localizing the styles. Right, so this is just an example, like, if you are focusing also on the other marketplace as well. So do note that certain marketplace may have preference for different style images that they use, like you see over here. This should compare if you're selling like apparel or what we call soft lines. Right, so different marketplace may have a different preference due to the nature of the customers and the culture over there. That certain image may work better, so you will require to do some A/B testing on your own to really, nail down on which are the most optimized image for your listings. All right, this will give you a sense of the different kind of the feel that you get from the image. It could be the same product, but because of a different marketplace or different target audience, you might need to structure it differently for your image. Right. Since and also, I believe most of us here will be focusing on the US, so we should always think of the US consumer, during our designing of all these images. Keep that in mind. The US kind of Western culture, what kind of image that is most relevant for them, right? Instead of thinking from where we are located. And also keep up with the seasons. Unlike Singapore, most of the Asia, we only have like summer here. So do take note that in the US, there will be like 4 seasons, all right? And then different variation of the themes, the colors will also help them decide on whether or not they want to purchase your product. So make sure that you take into consideration the seasons as well. All right, I'm going to move on to the next part regarding how can you further optimize the bullet points. All right. So the importance of bullet points is to convey important product features and also highlight the key information that you want your customers to know. Right, a well-written one will definitely increase the conversion and sales. All right, so characteristic of high quality listing is like this. It's a combination of highlighting the important or special information about your product that closely match with your customer review content. Now, of course, you need to already have some reviews, then you could be able to do these, right? So for a start, you may not be able to focus on other things that match your customer reviews. But what you can do is, look at your competitor product, if there is any, look at their reviews. Those good reviews that most of their customer gave, you can also use that as an estimation or approximation of what you can use to form up your bullet points, right? Okay, these are just some tips depending on your category, which one that is recommended to focus on, right? Example, like for outdoor product, the tip to focus on your bullet points is to focus on the ease of assembly, how ruggedness is, like how durable it is, whether or not there's any water resistance, or how portable it is. So let's look at a quick short case study of bullet points that we have over here. Right, you can see that over here, the right side, the one, this is the unoptimized one, where usually we will just dump every single details that we have over here. Right, so to optimize it, right, we can clean up with just a few bullet points. All right, like ease of operations, transaction, tree cleaning modes, smart feature, etc. Right, so the whole idea of this is to let you know that you can just focus on the key details on your bullet points, and then you can do your own, I would say, own calculation of how many times your product selling point is being mentioned in the different bullet points. Right, so this is what we recommended, have 5 core selling points of the core features. All right, and then together with your reviews, if you have any existing reviews, or you can use some competitor reviews. All right, so based on the good reviews that you usually see from the reviews, you can incorporate those into your bullet points as well. That will also help to increase your visibility and traffic to your product listing. All right, so again, this is also very wordy. You can see now the right side is before optimizing, right? So you can see this particular listing, the seller actually put in a lot of details, which is good, but it can be better, right? So each of these has a lot of the strings, text, without, clear point. And then, based on the tips earlier on, you should optimize it into a more clearly worded kind of bullet points to help your customer read it. All right, so this is also another example. All right, so this is the original one that you can see. Again, it's a good. You have all these bullet point ready in this example, but of course you can even make it better with the recommended optimization. Right, focus on a few key features you want to focus, and not like everything. If not, you'll be too wordy, too hard to read. Right, these are similar as well. I won't go through too much of the examples because you probably get the gist. You can rewatch it, but the idea is there. Right, optimize your listing. Even from looking at it at a glance, you can tell which one is easier to read, right? Right, so if you did not catch most of the part, just remember the summary of this. Right, think about how much to write, what to write, how you can write, and then go further by doing optimizations. And of course, some of my past webinar also talk about how you can do A/B testings, or you can test out your different copy, different A+ content to see which one actually bring in more traffic, more conversion as well. All right, I hope everyone is still with me. Next, I'm going to invite Hui Qi to share with us the Amazon advertising full funnel strategy, where she will focus on SB and SD, and so let me invite Hui Qi over here. Hello, Hui Qi. Let me give you the option to share the screen right now.
Thank you, Jin Liang.
Just give me a moment. Let me find. All right. Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jin Liang, for again giving me the opportunity to also talk about Amazon ads. So I'll try to tie in as much as what Jin Liang has covered, together with what you can do on Amazon ads, which is, in general, your whole seller strategy to attract more traffic and more sales to your store. So today, what we will be doing and covering will be the full funnel strategy for not just sponsored products, which I'm sure most sellers are aware of already or have already started using. But I think within Singapore, we still see only about 30% of people trying sponsored brands and sponsored display. So this is a chance to kind of learn about it and see how you can implement it into your strategy. So going straight into today's topic, essentially sponsored brands and sponsored display are what we call the brand building foundation. So apart from just pushing sales and pushing individual ASINs as advertising, there's also options for you to talk about your brand story and bring your brand story to life. So that's what we will cover today. Going straight into it, together with sponsored brands and sponsored display, it's not just advertising. There's also free products. So, just want to quickly recap, essentially, apart from just the paid or pay-per-click advertising products that Amazon have, we also have free tools, free brand tools for sellers to use that goes hand in hand with both. And how this falls along the entire consumer journey is, I'm sure Jin Liang also touched on this, but essentially when it comes to ads, you really want to think about it as a funnel. So you want to attract as much awareness as possible first, where they probably don't know your brand, they never heard of you yet. They usually start searching for certain products that they're looking for. So today's case study, I will use probably examples such as like hojicha. So I'm looking for tea. I'm an American consumer. I'm looking for tea on the website. I'm open to new brands or just randomly searching for products with no brand in focus. And then you want to attract as many people like me who have not heard of brands or are just looking for the product to get them to start considering your specific product. So that's the consideration phase. They might see your product already. And that's where, for example, sponsored brands and sponsored display might come into play. And then subsequently, you can retarget them and take different advertising strategies to make sure that they actually start adding your products to their cart and then eventually buying it. So that's a funnel. You'll see that people drop out along the way. They might buy other brands or they might decide not to buy at all. But essentially, you want to attract as much awareness as possible for your brand before going into consideration and then purchase. So how can you improve your ad performance more effectively? So firstly, you want to lay a good foundation for your brand with specific tools like stores, like building a very beautiful store. Secondly, then of course you want to build your brand awareness, right? People in the States might not have heard of your brand before. So this is a good opportunity for you to try telling your brand story with sponsored brands, maybe. And then, of course, number three is to enhance their buying intent, right? So what is the final kind of thing to push people from just thinking about the product to actually, okay, I'm going to put in my credit card details. So there are certain details that it all ties in with what Jin Liang mentioned earlier when it comes to listing as well. These all play together with Amazon ads. So what you want to do before you start advertising actually is to build a very strong foundation for your brand first. So, it's not just blasting ads. There are certain essential elements. So for example, as a new seller especially, you want to start building a very strong brand vision, mission, as well as visuals. So not just really just creating a logo or just trying to use stock images. A lot of brand owners that we see succeed on Amazon, they use excellent creatives that they customize for their brand on their product detail pages, their brand store, their posts. and their advertising campaigns, so that they are unique to your brand, they're very engaging, and they're rich creatives that represent your brand. So for example, you might be, a hojicha brand from Taiwan, or a hojicha brand from Singapore, and you really want to kind of dial up certain elements like it's organic or you're supporting small farmers. These are details that you should bring to life in the visuals. Then you optimize your product pages to increase your engagement. So as Jin Yang mentioned earlier, the bullet points, the high quality images, these are what people use to increase engagement and consideration, because when the visuals and the details are finely tuned, it adds to the credibility of your brand. Number 3, of course, you want to improve your brand shopping experience. So again, as I mentioned, stores is something that a lot of sellers should really pay a lot of attention to. And post is something that you can also try when it comes to creating an excellent brand experience. And of course, go straight into it. When you create a good foundation for your brand, what you want to do is first create a store. So we often see that stores that succeed, they do often have a video on their store. You want to add a store, add shoppable images. It's great to add very visual elements to your store. An interesting fact about your store is also that it is the only place on Amazon where your competitors are not allowed to advertise on it. So that is where you really want to kind of, in a way, blast people with really good, not just, individual ASINs, like beautiful ASINs, but you can also take the opportunity to put in a brand story video, for example, talking about your brand, or talking about, like customer testimonials. The possibilities are endless. Then, of course, you want to add, image modules with text for at least 2 ASINs to the store. You want to add a product grid for at least 4 ASINs in the store, and create at least 3 sub-pages for your stores. And then next, after creating a store, is then to direct people who are shopping towards the store. So there are 3 ways. Firstly, of course, you can create a post. So I'll show you an example of a post. Secondly, you also want to create a sponsored brands campaign and use custom images. For example, store spotlight, again, to kind of direct people towards to the store that you've put a lot of effort into. Number 3 is, again, drive more traffic. So you then want to start advertising for your store itself with the store spotlight format, essentially to drive more traffic towards your store. So a bit repetitive, and then so earlier we touched on creating the store. You've created the sub page, you've created a post. You can consider this kind of like a checklist, again, to kind of ramp up your consideration. Next, you might want to consider creating a sponsored brands video campaign. So I'll cover the different placements later, but they also, do different kind of like objectives in terms of telling your brand story. And then number 5 and number 6 is that subsequently, once you kind of become a bit more comfortable with sponsored brands, you can actually try creating a sponsored display campaign, where you try both audience targeting or product targeting. So first step, I think, as we mentioned, we always start with creating more awareness, because you want to create a big announcement of your brand. So the broadest application of sponsored display would be audience targeting. And once you've funneled down your audiences a little bit, there are strategies to take for sponsored display, product targeting, for example, to take on a more offensive or a more defensive approach leading up towards peak season. So there are different strategies we can take for creating this full funnel brand building kind of a strategy. And then how do we actually optimize that for peak season subsequently with offensive and defensive strategy? That's what we can do. So just a bit of a proof point from Amazon's side, we take on kind of internal studies, right? We see that brands that use at least 2 of the self-service products, which is sponsored brands, sponsored products, sponsored display, when you mix and match, 30% of brands see 30% higher than average brand awareness index, versus those that only use 1 self-service advertising product. And 35% also see a 35% higher purchase intent index versus brands that use only 1 self-service advertising product. And you see that brands that actually try using stores and posts, they in general actually drive consumers to stay on the store much longer time than stores without videos. And one best practice that I can recommend to sellers is that you want to display your best sellers in your stores, so that you see an average of 10% more time spent by consumers versus brands that don't. And thirdly, you also want to see that brands with stores also see 8% increase in new to brand customers. So new to brand is also an interesting metric, where basically that you're attracting customers that have never seen your brand before, and that's an additional lead for you as well. So just a recap, I won't dwell too long. This is a screenshot or a checklist in terms of what new sellers can take on to, again, like, build your brand awareness. Some of the best practices for you to take. Yeah. So I'll pause here a little bit before we go straight into sponsored brands. So some advertising tools that you can take after becoming a brand owner. Today I'll touch on sponsored brands and sponsored display. So previously we often cover sponsored products, but today you can really kind of focus much more on sponsored brands and sponsored display. So the difference is that sponsored brands, you'll notice that essentially the goal is to really help consumers discover, your brand and your products with richer creators. So you can insert a video or you can link them towards a store. That's the difference. Sponsored display is really just, I would say, a display format. Essentially, you pop up everywhere along the Amazon site. One note that I would recommend to sellers is that for sponsored display, the KPI should be awareness, not sales. You'll notice that I'll never recommend you to just do only sponsored display to increase your sales, because essentially the goal of sponsored display is to appear everywhere, and the goal is appearance, showing your ad to consumers, and to drive overall awareness of your brand, rather than, for example, talking about deals, talking about your price or your price point or individual ASINs. So I'll cover that later as well. Going into sponsored brands. So what is it? So sponsored brands are essentially, again, creative ads that appear in, relevant placements, such as the top of the search results page. Firstly, they appear in very significant placements across Amazon website. So they will appear at the top of the search result page, bringing a lot of exposure to you. Secondly, the difference between sponsored brands and sponsored products is that it's much more, I would say, dynamic or diverse. So you can actually promote 3 of your ASINs as well as your store at the same time, increasing your exposure, purchase intent and sales. Number 3, again, it is, a customizable creative kind of expression. So sponsored product, you notice, you just advertise one single product. But for sponsored brands, actually my favorite, because you can actually put in a video, you can link it to your store. It's much more creative, and a lot of big brands as well, once you put in an effort to shoot a video, for example, for YouTube ads or any kind of ads, you can repurpose and put it onto Amazon US, Amazon type of advertising platforms as well. And this is the format to use. Number 4, again, it is pay per click. The cost, you can stop advertising when it exceeds the cost. You can control your budget. Again, it's pay per click. Number 5 is that, again, as with all Amazon products, it's very measurable. You'll be able to track it similarly to sponsored products in terms of, how much time, for example, you're out of budget. You can make timely adjustments for peak season as well. So that's sponsored brands. So you will see that the placements for sponsored brands appear at different locations. So firstly, and I would say the most importantly, is that sponsored brands often appear at top of search results page. So that is a very prominent ad location for your sponsored brands. Secondly, you will see that, for example, sponsored brand video, they occupy a large space on your top of search results page. Again, it's very prime property, prime location for you to pop up when people are searching for a certain product. It can also appear on product detail pages, for people to look at. So I'll quickly see if I can flash a real life case study of this. So yeah. So an example of, again, so this is not a brand, this is a store. So for example, this is a Handmade Hero store on Amazon website. So you'll notice that, again, the store, there is a bestseller widget here. You will be able to see, people, the brand owners here have decided to, list down their individual product categories, put in very rich creatives, very beautiful. Then you'll see that they've chosen to include a sponsored brand video here, or include a video onto their store. And you'll notice that throughout the store, you don't see any competitor products appearing here. So this is an example of an excellent store that we can take advantage of. And it's free, so this is the free one. Secondly, I know laptop isn't the best view, but a lot of people shop on mobile as well. And you will see that, for example, they have chosen to implement the follow button here, and even specifically calling out follow us for latest products and updates. There's also posts. So you'll see that if you take advantage of posts, you'll be able to repurpose beautiful shots from your Instagram, your social media campaign, and you'll be able to link individual product listings, onto your post as well. So this is something that sellers should definitely try. And then going into sponsored brands. So just an example here, I've chosen to search for hojicha, for example, as a tea product. So very firstly, as an organic search for hojicha product, the very first thing you see here is a sponsored brands product collection ad format. So here you'll be able to add in a custom image, your logo, your brand name, your own custom image, right? It can be a tea image, it can be any other image. And then this specific sponsored brand format is a product collection. So you're able to choose 3 of your ASINs to advertise. So as you see, it's right at the top of the search results page. So it's very prominent. It's a great opportunity for you to talk about your brand and to attract people to your brand. And it links to their store as well. So it's an excellent format. And then if you scroll down onto the results page, scroll, then you'll see actually a sponsored brand video. So if you notice, if you use a sponsored products, for example, it will be labeled sponsored here, you're taking up 1 out of 5 of the listings that appear on the result page. But when you do a sponsored brand video, you're actually occupying the entire row. You're taking up almost 5 slots worth of advertising. So again, it's an excellent format basically to really interrupt viewers when it comes to what they're searching for. You'll be able to insert like a beautiful video telling your brand story. Of course, there is also image of the sponsored product, the product itself that you're trying to sell. So this is an example of a sponsored brand video. So just a quick example of for example, searching for hojicha. These are kind of the formats that appear. And yeah, so when it comes to the product detail page as well, you'll be able to see not just sponsored brands. There are many different type of essentially kind of videos appearing here. This is actually a sponsored display, I would say, and sponsored brands, we have to scroll down a little bit. These are all sponsored display. And over here, these are also examples of sponsored brand placements that you are bidding for. It can also appear on the product detail page. So these are other brands within this category on Amazon. So these are what appears on the product detail page. But I would say when you're doing sponsored brands format, what you are trying to occupy is this position, this placement on the Amazon website, as well as sponsored videos. I would say is a great format to experiment with as well. Okay, so going back into this, hold on. Oops. Okay, so these are the placements for sponsored brands. And again, different advertising formats and techniques. There's product collection, which you saw earlier. There is store spotlight. So instead of the different products appearing, you'll be able to see the categories that you're advertising appearing. So this is great, for example, certain brands, for example, like electronics. You're an electronic seller, but you have many different electronics category, maybe like kettles, steam irons, etc. Then you can list down the categories in the sub pages, and then of course there's also sponsored brand video that you can try to use. Yeah, so these are the different formats for sponsored brands. And we'll go into the product collection. So you see sponsored brand product collection. You'll be able to put in your brand logo, your ad title, and your store button. And then you'll be able to choose 3 ASINs that you can advertise. So this is great. You can put in your hero ASIN, your star ASIN, and maybe a slightly another ASIN that you really want to push, maybe a long tail ASIN, or you want to clear inventory or stock kind of an ASIN, you can put it in. Over here, essentially, you can help to drive certain products that you really want to drive, but it's also a great kind of a format essentially to just really talk about the 3 key iconic products that you're selling. Other format is store spotlight, as I mentioned. So here the goal is really to drive consumers towards your stores and probably certain categories that you're selling. So this works for brands that are selling multiple different categories. For example, like maybe tea seller, they really only sell maybe green tea and hojicha. But if, for example, you are an electronic seller, you have many different categories like coffee makers, toasters, blenders, then you're able to list down your categories and drive people towards your product categories. And you land onto your store's subpage, which you have to set up as well. And then thirdly, as we mentioned earlier, it will be a video format. So you'll be able to see a video that you uploaded, your own custom brand video. Secondly, it will be your image of essentially your product, a custom image of your product, single ASIN. And then of course the landing product detail page. Here, most of the time you are actually driving a single product, your hero product, for example, but you accompany it with a rich creative like a video. So that's the 3 formats. We recommend sellers, once you are ready with the budget, like you're comfortable trying, we actually experiment. I highly encourage sellers to experiment with the different sponsored brand products to test and learn to see which is very effective for you. We often see very high return on investment, especially for sponsored brands video formats in Singapore. So that's something that we encourage sellers to experiment with. I won't dwell too long on this. We can cover this in a separate session, but for sponsored brands, the KPIs as well as the reports that you can download are very similar to sponsored products, almost the same actually. So how you advertise your sponsored brands is similar and exactly the same to sponsored products. You use keywords as well as product targeting. So, for people who have attended my kind of A-course or reporting workshop in our seller meetups, I often tell sellers, the 1 or 2 reports that you really need to download will be search term reports. And search term reports also applies for sponsored brands and sponsored brands video. And secondly, you can download, for example, your keyword report specifically for your sponsored brands to see what keywords are working for you, because the whole thing is driven quite heavily by keywords as a first step. And then once you become a more advanced advertiser, you can do product targeting as well. But most importantly, you want to download keywords as well as search term reports. Again, different KPIs can be impressions, clicks, all the applications for sponsored products work similarly for sponsored brands. And then, different KPIs we can track to download to see, what is working for us in terms of return on advertising investment, sales generated by your advertising. So these are certain KPIs that we want to look at. Yeah. So, essentially, we can leverage different kind of sponsored products. I won't stay too long here. Yeah. I think here the call out is that, a lot of top sellers in China, they actually use sponsored brand video to achieve very high traffic and high conversions. So these are kind of verbatims from our seller trainers from China. You'll see that actually videos are working very well for them. So that's something that we highly encourage Singapore sellers to try. Note that, of course, your videos, again, similarly to your product images, they have to be high quality HD version. There are certain requirements for you to download. So we recommend you to screenshot and keep for your reference in terms of the best practices for your video. You need to be able to kind of, for example, I would say, even from my own advice, I would say you want to land, for example, your logo as well as your product within the first 3 to 5 seconds. You can upload a very long video, but note that a lot of people are very short attention span on mobile and watching videos. So, you know, in the first 3 to 5 seconds is where you want to kind of optimize your brand name, your product, your key product that you're selling. And then, of course, the HD or, you know, the technical requirements for Amazon sponsored brand video is here. And then, of course, you can again optimize your keywords and your video quality essentially to kind of see how it works best for you. Yeah. And then not to stay too long, we will go to sponsored display and then we can see how it works hand in hand together. So for sponsored display, what is it? Essentially, sponsored display is a format to reach relevant audience who have searched for and purchased products both on and off Amazon through the shopping kind of journey, throughout different ad placements, both on Amazon as well as on other websites that are not on Amazon.com. So why try sponsored display? I think sponsored display really is different in the sense that it allows you to choose audiences to kind of target. So if you are really a very new brand, you'll be able to, you know, instead of blasting to a completely random audience, you can actually select a certain pool of audiences that you want to kind of target. For example, maybe tea lovers, of health conscious people who are into tea, for example, if you're a hojicha seller, for example. And then of course there are two kind of main targeting for sponsored display. Firstly, it will be product targeting, and then secondly, it will be audience targeting. And then you can further even refine your targeting based on, you know, price, star rating, etc., to drive traffic accurately. Essentially, it's a very awareness product, right? Just now earlier, I started on the funnel where you want to drive a lot of awareness before narrowing down to people who are ready to buy. Sponsored display is really meant to drive big awareness for your product. Number 4, you know, it's also creative. There are also video formats now for sponsored display, and there are very creative or bidding functions to promote your brands. And number 5, I would say very interesting for sponsored display. We often use it as a strategic tool. You don't just use it just to kind of display your product. You actually use sponsored display to defend or create offensive strategies for your brand, where you protect or, you know, attack competitor brands. So that's another tactic you can use for peak season strategy. Yeah. So going into the sponsored display kind of placements, there are very, very different placements for sponsored display. Of course, on the Amazon homepage, there is sponsored display. In the search result page, there's also display. And most importantly, I think for sponsored display, it appears most frequently around the product detail page. So going into kind of a case study for what a sponsored display is. So for example, you search for hojicha. This here on the left, this vertical format is actually a sponsored display format as well. So you'll see that, you know, despite searching for hojicha, you can actually occupy as a matcha seller, for example. Maybe you want to get people to consider not just buying hojicha, they also buy matcha. And then, for example, on the product detail page, I clicked on one of the hojicha listings. You'll see that right at the top here, this small little image at the top is also a sponsored display placement or ad format for number 1. Number 2, here, you see right beside the big product kind of image, there is also a sponsored display ad. So this is what I mean by, you know, and of course on the right hand side here, there are even more, you know, sponsored display ad formats. So in particular, this 3, I would say, placements are what we kind of think of when it comes to defensive or offensive strategy. So you'll see here that this competitor or, you know, alternative brand is taking on a rather kind of aggressive offensive strategy on jig leaf, essentially to eat into their product detail page positions. And this is what we mean by when you advertise for products, you don't really want people to kind of run away to other brands. But here you see that Naoki matcha, for example, has occupied the almost 360 positions around this jade leaf product, and it's also possible that consumers might actually click away into this other brand's product to look and browse at it. So when it comes to peak season, what you want to do is to actually, if I were jade leaf, I would take one of my products, maybe my matcha products or my kind of starter kit product, and I would target my own hojicha product. So I'll take this starter kit and I'll do product targeting for sponsored display on my hojicha product, so that my own products appear in the 360 kind of periphery for my individual products, so that I defend my position and I defend it from being stolen by other competitors. So that is what I mean by sponsored display. You can use it again as a defensive or offensive strategy. So here Naoki Matcha is taking a pretty offensive strategy on jade leaf, and if I were jade leaf, I would defend this hero ASIN with a slightly other ASIN, for example maybe a long tail ASIN or something that complements it like a starter kit, and target it so that I protect all the positions around my product detail page. So these are the placements. And of course, when it comes to sponsored display, just to broadly recap, there are two types of targeting. It's audience targeting as well as product targeting. So just covering our audience targeting first, you will see that within audience targeting, you can actually target, for example, two types of remarketing: views remarketing or purchase remarketing. Sounds like a lot, but basically you are just targeting people who have previously viewed your brand before, or you are actually targeting people who have previously bought your product or your category before. So that's excellent because essentially, you can do loyalty remarketing. For example, people who have bought before, you can just remind them to buy again, or people who have viewed leading up towards, for example, peak season, then you can implement views remarketing so that you just remind people to buy your product during peak season, for example, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And then number three is Amazon audiences. So Amazon audience has also built up specific audience pools, for example, beauty fanatics, health conscious people, and you can target specific audiences to again, blast your brand name to people who might not have ever heard of your product before. And then secondly, it's product targeting. So product targeting here is where we really try to do that offensive or defensive strategy. So just think about it as targeting certain products. It can be your own product to defend, or it can target your competitor or a bigger competitor brand name product to offensive strategy to take some traffic from big names. Number three, it's category targeting. So you don't need to target individual single products. You can target an entire category. So for example, you can target the broader tea category if you want to just drive big traffic towards your ASINs and get people to even be exposed to your brand as well. So let's learn about audience targeting. So I highly recommend sellers to screenshot or refer back to the playback links for this. But again, you don't have to be overly complicated. You will be able to see that essentially views purchase remarketing is, as I mentioned, views remarketing is for people who have previously browsed your product detail page, who have previously browsed product detail pages that are similar to the advertised products, within the look back window, people who have browsed the category or segment category, and you can even refine by the brand name, star rating, price, etc. And you can choose, essentially the look back window of 7, 14, 30 days, depending on, for example, how often people repurchase your brands. And it will be appearing both off Amazon as well as in Amazon. Off Amazon could be, for example, publisher websites. Can also appear, on, for example, Prime Video sites or Pinterest sites. So these are certain websites that can appear on. And of course, it supports a custom title, logo, and scenario-based pictures. So that's how it works. Purchase remarketing, again, you are targeting essentially people who have bought your products before. So you remarket to people who have bought within your category or your specific brand itself. So that's what you can do. And number 3 is you can select essentially pre-built audience segments that are available that Amazon gives you to engage potential new customers. Essentially, they are built and curated by Amazon Ads using some of our first party like shopping insights into 4 main categories: in market, lifestyle, interest, and live events. So that's kind of how it works when it comes to audience targeting. So we can kind of cover the scenario for views remarketing. So when it comes to views remarketing, there are 3 possible application scenarios. So one, you might just want to build traffic, right? So you, for example, sell children toy brand, you launch a new teddy bear. Essentially, what you want to do, there's no previous browsing or purchase records. So you can use audience views remarketing who have recently visited the PDP or the detail pages of other popular toys, not your toys, but have not made a purchase. You can target category level audiences if you want to expand your reach even further. Second application scenario, you want to attract new customers for your existing product. So for example, you are selling a hot product like a Barbie doll, but you want to drive new customer growth. So how do you use views remarketing? So essentially, you can target audiences who have viewed similar items that are more expensive than your Barbie dolls. So you basically draw out the price advantage that you're cheaper, but your quality is just as good, and you drive new customer conversions. Number 3, you want to convert lost sales opportunities. So again, this is something similar to peak season strategy, leading up towards peak, right? You can actually, again, retarget people who have viewed your listings, but have not purchased it, essentially, and essentially get them to convert into a final sale. And then subsequently, this is for purchase remarketing. Again, as I mentioned, it's really just to promote brand loyalty and repurchase. That's the easiest application for purchase remarketing. So people who have maybe bought your skincare mask in the last 30 days, it's time for them to top up. So you can actually customize a look back window. So you notice that most people repurchase after 30 days. Maybe you sell a 30 pack or a 15 pack type of face mask. You retarget your customers after 30 days or 15 days, again, to remind them to top up. Secondly, purchase remarketing is also great for cross-selling. So for example, you are selling, essentially the example here is a Bluetooth headset. You want to sell a Bluetooth headset, you can actually target people who have bought mobile phones, or laptops, for example, in the past period, and get them to cross-sell, right? So you bought a laptop, you bought a headphone, do you want to consider buying, like earphones or headsets? So you can target that one as well. So here, what you want to do is to identify complementary products and target them with sponsored display. Number 3, again, sponsored display is excellent for reaching new audiences. So for example, if you're selling office chairs, something like, a secret lab, how do you want to reach new audiences? So you can target people who are, in other categories. You sell office chairs, but why do they use office chairs? They're office workers, right? They are people sitting at a desk using a laptop. So you can actually target people who have previously browsed computer monitors, computer stands, office tables, like, these are all complementary or parallel kind of categories that are near to you, and get them to consider your brand so you reach new audiences that you've never reached before. And lastly, for Amazon audiences, application scenario. So of course, number 1, to build your product awareness. I think I would say that Amazon audiences is best for really driving pure exposure and awareness. So you are a new brand, you just want to promote your new product, then essentially you just want to cold start your product right now. Try Amazon audiences. You can target relevant audiences and get new to brand customers. For example, you sell here, example, in the blue part is you sell travel neck pillows. You can actually target, upcoming travel audiences through Amazon's consumer live events to reach audiences with relevant need and gain the new to brand customers. And number 3, you can test and learn and infer certain insights, to kind of see how much sales volume you're getting and kind of click-through rate, product detail page views, essentially to see, what is relevant to your categories and try it. So I won't touch too much on this. I think Amazon audiences is something really just purely driving exposure. If you have no idea where to start, it might be good for you to kind of do a bit of consumer understanding of who is buying your product and what scenario they're buying their product for, and then target the relevant kind of interest group, audience group when it comes to that. And then of course for product targeting, as I mentioned, is offensive, defensive strategy. What is that? So product targeting, as we know, and for most sellers who have done sponsored product targeting, you are just selecting certain ASINs to target. It can be your own ASIN or it can be a competitor ASIN. Any ASIN within your category, that's something you can choose and basically implement. So there are different use scenarios. You can just drive traffic. So for example, there are smaller brands that I will talk to. For example, a small shaving brand. You're a new and up and coming brand. You think your product is competitive, but we know that for example, big shaving brands, they get a lot of traffic, right? There are very big brand names that people associate with shaving. So you might want to target very big brand names to steal some traffic, getting people to reconsider, do I really want to stick to this big old brand that I've always bought, or do I want to try something new and see a up and coming kind of a smaller brand that offers similar kind of products and target those. Number two, it can be, again, harvest competitive product traffic to highlight your own advantages. I think this comes hand in hand with number one. Essentially, you're just trying to steal traffic from higher price, higher traffic competitors. Number three, product targeting is great for cross-selling, right? So essentially, for example, like I'm selling matcha powder, I can actually target basically the matcha whisk or the matcha bowl, basically to cross-sell the products. It can be your own products. You can manufacture your own matcha bowl, your own matcha whisk, and basically do cross-selling. And number four, how to get more traffic, right? You just target a broader category. So within product targeting, instead of targeting individual ASINs, you can actually choose extended product targeting, which is, to reach the broader category. So instead of targeting maybe, competitor B's matcha brand, I can actually just target matcha as a category, or, for example, premium grade matcha, if I want to play in that category, and just harvest traffic from those related categories. Yeah. So you can essentially optimize, of course, your bids within sponsored display. It's slightly different when it comes to bidding. We bid based on essentially cost per milli. So cost per milli means that actually cost per impression, essentially it's like 1,000 impressions. So essentially how you want to optimize and how you want to choose a bidding strategy is you can optimize for page visits, where essentially you serve ads to people that are most likely to click on an ad and drive impression. So this is really just pure page visits. The second bidding strategy is optimized for conversion. So you can click on audiences who are more likely to click on the ad and then purchase the items within 14 days. So Amazon determines that. And number three, you can optimize for visible impressions when it comes to reach as well. So yes, sponsored display, again, as I mentioned, it falls along the entire funnel. It can be applicable for, in my opinion, the best for driving awareness, which I also equate to traffic via the different tactics like views, remarketing, audiences, consideration phase. I would say, views as well as, again, product targeting is what we can consider with sponsored display. And number three, when it comes to conversion, offensive and defensive strategy, we will want to implement a kind of a product targeting as well for sponsored display. Yeah. So again, sponsored display, there are very different type of customizations. You can customize the pictures, the logos. You can implement it as and when you want. And again, sponsored display, highly trackable. So you can download, for example, targeting report, advertise product report, as well as purchase product report to track the effectiveness of your sponsored display. And this is what I mean by the different placements. So just a recap for our sellers, you can screenshot this as a reference. What are the different kind of placements appearing? So at the top, you have sponsored brands, and then you have sponsored products. And then after that, you will see a video. So that's sponsored brand video. And then below, if you see brands related to your search, that's sponsored brands. At the side, that is sponsored display. And then when it comes to the detail page, right at the top strip is a sponsored display. And then subsequently, you have sponsored brands, sponsored brands. And then of course, right at the kind of right side, it's sponsored display placements, the 360 placement as I mentioned, which is the offensive or defensive strategy. And then afterwards, you have some sponsored products right below as the other kind of other items that people search for. And then below that is sponsored brands. And then lastly is sponsored display. So this is just a recap of the different placements for our ad products. And then of course the tips, as I mentioned, offensive strategy is really, as I mentioned, the Naoki matcha example earlier, you can invade the space of product detail pages of a competitor brands and appear, at the 360 corners here. And then, of course, you can also self-defense yourself with sponsored display, with some of the sponsored display product placements. And of course, there's another strategy, which is self-defense bundle. So you can do bundling, which also appears below the product detail pages. So you also protect yourself in a way from essentially getting invaded, I would say, by a competitor. So that's what we implement for sponsored display, product targeting. So that's something that we can kind of experiment with together as our sellers. And that's it actually for our sponsored brands and sponsored display kind of segment for Amazon ads. I'll hand my time back to Jin Liang and answer any questions along the way as well.
To my screen. All right, this is just to share that we have a one-pager guide on the peak season seller success strategy. So over there are some checklists. So for those of you who are participating in the upcoming PBDD, the Prime Big Day deals, and also Black Friday, Cyber Monday, to check it out, the one-pager guide, which is really good for sellers, and also where you can find a lot of details in Seller University. All right. Let me look at the questions right now. So I'm just going to read out the questions for those of you who might be watching the playback. All right, so we have a question from Vanessa, who asks about how come there are many active listings that don't have a plain white background still. So again, like I mentioned earlier on in the listing portion, so all the main image you need to have a white background for all your main image. So except for your product detail pages on your alternative images, you do not need to have a white background. So in that sense, if you were to still see some of those main images that have the white background, sooner or later when the system detects it, they will be suppressed, the listing will be impacted, right? So this is just some ongoing algorithm backend. They will try to detect all these non-compliant images. So yep, so if you still somehow see some of those, sooner or later you will actually get suppressed as well. All right, so any other questions from anyone regarding ads? We have Hui here to help us address your questions on ads. And also I'll be here as well on any other questions regarding listings, or how do you optimize your listing further. I don't see any more questions. All right, so we will still be here for about a minute. All right, so if there are no more questions, then we'll see you at the next webinar that you see over here. We have some more session upcoming. If any of this topic relates to you or you want to find out more, do feel free to sign up, and I will see you at that session. Let me see if there's any questions. All right, so I think we are on time to let everyone go. So thanks everyone for joining us today and to stay with us throughout the session. And thank you, Hui so much for your time to share about ads. And there is another session on ads as well, if you see on 28th of this month. So do join in, and then there will be a lot more, I would say, insights about how you can run your ads more effectively. So I'll see you at the next session, and thank you once again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hui. Thanks to everyone. See you at the next one. Goodbye.